As you see from the panel, it's very distinguished. 4 of the panel members, you've heard their presentations already. You've been able to read their bios, and so I would say that they have been introduced to you. We do have 2 new panelists. Frank Franklin, he is a professor emeritus from the School of Public Health, so welcome, Frank. And Kathy Crenshaw. Many of you know Kathy. How do you describe Kathy? Entrepreneur extraordinary. She does a little bit of everything. So before we came up, Kathy said, Linda, I just got back from Tampa, and I got some really interesting things that I think might be timely to share. So, Kathy, so a few words. Are you on? Can you hear Kathy?
No. Hang on.
Okay. You've been muted.
I've been muted.
Okay.
How are you? Good idea. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I've just come back from Tampa, and I'm a faculty member this year with the Birmingham Institute Rose Center, which works with mayors around the United States, so connecting the dots between the cities. Our mayor is very interested in this initiative, and I don't know how many of you all know that there are 8 mayors in Birmingham right now, even as we speak, as part of the Mayor's Institute. So one of the things that I'm hearing working with mayors across the country, you can't hear me? Okay.
It's a little loud.
A little louder. This conversation with mayors through the Center for Urban Design, the Rose Program, the Rose Center at ULI, and the initiative that's going on now through the National Endowment of the Arts, with mayors having this sort of singular conversation. I mean, I think what we all recognize, probably internationally, of course, but in the United States, is this is one conversation that all of our mayors are starting to have. So this last trip to Tampa, just got back, is seeing how they, especially in smaller cities, third-tier cities, are moving towards this kind of initiative. And it's just a real exciting thing for Birmingham and I think for the rest of the country.
Well, one of the important things about bringing about change is actually doing something. It's really important when you have a process of change that the early accomplishments. So the first question that I have for all the panelists is, what would be your recommendations for the Birmingham area in terms of in the next foreseeable few years, 2-3 years, what are the most important things that we could get accomplished? What are the things that we should be doing to create some excitement and create some action in terms of sustainability? Open to any of you.
Who wants to start?
Kathy, why don't you start?
Okay. This is easy. Here's a kind of a big little phrase that somebody told me the other day. So what's the difference between a good idea and a good idea that works? And it is work. And for us, we have, I think, all of the right ingredients to make some tremendous shifts in this conversation. I'm bringing a lot of people in to see our city recently, and what I hear back, and what many of you have heard, is that Birmingham has an embarrassment of riches. We have all these incredible resources. We have a beautiful historic building stock. We have this incredible topography valley. So for us, and for me, I think the main focus first is transportation. I'm a transportation education girl. I think right now in our city, there is a lot of different conversations going on, specifically about how we move around our city center. We have 80,000 people who work in the city center, quite an extraordinarily focused amount of citizens. We drive 31 miles per day per capita on average, one of the 4 worst cities in the country. And we have this wonderful market shift that is occurring for folks wanting to live in walkable urban environments. So I think all the stars are lining up for us, and a real opportunity for us to jump forward as a city is to get a very well-coordinated city center circular. We have the reputation of having the worst public transportation system in America, so I think it's an opportunity to us to push that in a different direction. So I would say first transportation. I'll pick up later. These guys know more than I do.
Mayor, would you like to add on that?
Well, you asked something which I think the important things that can be done cannot be done in 3 years, 2 or 3 years.
So starting.
But the first thing is to have clear what you want. For example, you cannot have transport if you don't have density. you cannot have mass transit if you don't have density. So I think if you were to put tomorrow the best subway in the planet anywhere in Birmingham, it would run empty, or almost. So I think you first need to create the structure. Or at least simultaneously, I believe that if you ask me what there are several things that would be done, but I will go to this most controversial thing that I am proposing, is that I feel there is a historical opportunity. I mean, clearly, if we agree that the suburbs are problematic, the suburbs are problematic because they create global warming, they are totally car dependent, they generate all kinds of environmental problems because of transportation issues, the size of the homes issues, and all kinds of things like this. So I come back again. Linda mentioned that I was proposing something very radical when I say that 30 blocks should be demolished. They are almost demolished. They are almost, maybe I'm too close to that microphone.
They are, you're right, you're almost going.
Because the problem is that this, when the light is on, they are almost demolished already. There is, I mean, I think the United States got a little too traumatized. In the 1950s and 60s, there were some failed urban renewal projects. And then the most important book in urbanism in the world, which is Jane Jacobs, she criticized very much urban renewal because many neighborhoods which were very healthy and dynamic were being torn down. However, this does not mean that urban renewal, even that's a dirty word, we have to change the name, is not convenient and even necessary. If we go to any European city, there have been massive programs. I went to graduate school in France, and here in the United States, any little old building which is 80 or 100 years old is almost like a treasure. I lived, the neighborhood where I lived in Paris, which was around 200 years old, was completely demolished. Everything around where I lived, many acres, downtown Paris, near Montparnasse, and redone in a beautiful way. Many similar programs have been done in Spain, in Italy, in different places. So here we have an amazing opportunity of some very low value land, very near the center of town. So why should we do this? First, because clearly, socially, it's not great. Of course, the first day that we say that we're going to do this, the neighbors will say, no, we're going to be kicked out. We love the neighborhood the way it is and all of this. But the fact is that as soon as they have enough income, all of them leave from there. So it's not like they are really joyful there and they want to stay there. No, on the contrary, they want to leave as soon as they can from this neighborhood. It doesn't seem, for what I heard, I'm not a special sociologist on this, but this is simply the hearsay that I understand. Second, we clearly need to solve an environmental problem which is enormous. And people everywhere in the world, they want to go where the leaders go, where the upbringing, I mean, people want to become like their idols, like their models, like the artists or the fancy professors or whatever. So, I really do believe, and this is not new to the United States either, it has been done, wrong, right or wrong, in some, it has been emphasized much more, the wrong things have been emphasized than the right things, but for example, many of the low-income housing that was built in New York in the 1950s and 60s still works quite well. Very recently, a few years ago, for the lawyers here, there was maybe it had more impact in the rest of the world. Everywhere in the world there is some legislation that allows to use eminent domain, not just for public projects, but for private projects as well. For example, I mean, there have been many projects with using this kind of thing. For example, the Giant Canary Wharf projects, and many projects in London. Now, here in New London, Connecticut, about 7 years ago or something like this, there was a very controversial ruling by the Supreme Court of the United States, which approved that eminent domain could be used for a discussion that was in New London, in Connecticut, to do something where they demolished some houses which were in much better shape than the ones that are outside Birmingham, in order to do, I mean, I don't find a better word than urban. So, I just finish here. I really think at least, the very least that could be done is to study this. To study this, because we are too paralyzed by guilt or fear that we will be criticized. I think there is an amazing opportunity. If we were to have a few, I mean, in some areas, don't even houses have to be torn down, because, for example, around this stadium, there are dozens, if not hundreds of acres of parking lots and things. And if you add up to this a few of the land, and if the people who live there will get a lot of money and also housing to stay there, there is an amazing opportunity, as Linda said, a little bit exaggerated, but it's true, to build almost a new Birmingham, which could become a world example of high quality urbanism. You could do a world contest of urban design or different, it's so large. So I think there is a great opportunity. And today, what you see in Birmingham? You see downtown Birmingham, the university, which is a treasure, but aside from that, a few government buildings, and a lot of parking lot buildings. I don't remember having seen a city with so many buildings with parking lots.
Are there any other panelists that would like to make some suggestions? Frank?
Yeah, I'd like to echo what Kathy Crenshaw suggested in terms of education and bring it together with what Mayor Peñalosa suggested in terms of all the empty lots we have. And that is to change our focus to food for a moment and urban agriculture, which many of you are interested in. I think that please we're getting a lot of positive feedback. I did also learn a lot today. It convinced me in retirement that I should probably move to Bogota. That was also a message that I got today. But in terms of food, I think that food emissions are responsible for, if you change the sustainability scale to a larger global scale, you realize that food emissions are 20% of the greenhouse gas production. And a lot of that comes from large livestock. And so we know from a health point of view that if we consume more fruits and vegetables and whole grains and less meat, that in fact both the environment would be healthier and we would be healthier. That clearly addresses the health issues here in Birmingham. One of our natural resources is our climate, and our soil, and the empty spaces that we have, and I think some of that can be devoted to urban agriculture. I think also food is a great social catalyst, and from that point of view, the social environment is very important as well. So I see it both from the point of view of greenhouse gases, health, education, and also our social environment.
I would encourage folks to line up by the mic. If you'd like to ask questions, feel free. I would be open to that now. Sir, do you have a question you want to ask?
Sure. Hello?
Can you get his mic turned on?
It's on.
Yeah, it's on. Put it up.
Be good.
Be shy.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I want to thank you for putting this seminar on, first of all. I'm an environmentalist, and I'm one that believes that people should lead by example. And I've been looking at the presentations, and my question for the panel, and I know that we got University of Alabama was one of the sponsors for this event. and Alabama Power also. So I want to specifically focus my question towards those representatives that sit on that panel, or maybe we can encourage them, Alabama Power and UAB, to speak for themselves. But when I look at nationally, Birmingham, and I've got 23 rankings here that were done in coordination with Stanford University in 2010. And when I say lead by example, when I look at the ridiculous bike paths that you got in the city, because I ride them on Saturday and Sunday morning. I think it's 2nd Avenue, and you can pick it up at 17th Street, and it ends just before you get up almost towards Avondale Park. It just runs that length. But if you look right around campus, and let me commend UAB for the 1 or 2 trails that they have, but in Davis, California, they're serious. When you ride or walk or you park your car in a designated bike lane, that's the key word, designated, you get a ticket for about $75. So UAB, lead by example. Alabama Power. When Birmingham, Alabama, and the Birmingham News said it's not Kamal Africa, that's my name. In 04, 08, and 2010, Birmingham ranked in the top 10 national in respiratory illness, and we were 3rd in the nation for infant mortality. You guys fund the politicians, including the mayor that left here. You put big money behind these politicians, and you got a bill, there's a bill in the House right now, Bill 274, to roll back recycling in this state. And so my thing is, start running your mouth and lead by example. And that's basically what I've got to say. Because you can do some simple things like designate major bike trails right in this building. And I know this is owned, I think, by UAB. If not, you got places all over the campus. And I know in some places you got places to put aluminum cans, plastic cans. There's a lot that you can do as an initiative. And that's my question. Will you do that if you're on that panel? Thank you.
Thanks. And that's well put. I mean, I think we all we're here to make those next steps and make some things happen. I know at UAB we're addressing a lot of these kinds of issues. I know Alabama Power Company is addressing many of these issues, as well as the city of Birmingham is addressing these issues. So these are very well noted. So as we continue on, other people, what are some next steps that you would say, come on Birmingham, let's do it? Yes, Oscar.
Yeah, working? I just wanted to insist on what Enrique Peñalosa said, that the most important thing is to bring people back to downtown Birmingham. And to do that, we need to work together with the private sector, the university, and the mayor's office to find initiatives to bring back companies that work from here. So we also need to increase the tax base of Birmingham, so we are able to have better programs for the citizens. So that's one of the things, bringing the private sector along here, and also from the public side to create more livable cities, livable streets, where we can have people coming out and taking the streets, activities like the car-free days, in which we can have people enjoy the city they have. And if we get them excited, I'm sure they're going to come and live downtown. We need to bring people to live downtown.
Yeah, and let me say, last year we moved back to Birmingham. We moved over to South Side. I'm in a condo now, and I absolutely love it. So come on and join me. You'll have a fun time when you come back to town. I think, Kathy, you have something to say.
I'd like to just dovetail on what Oscar said and to restate what I said earlier, which is nationally there is a significant shift in market demand for walkable urban world. As a real estate developer who's been working in the city center for 30, 40 years, we've tried very hard, and we've been pushing against a tide that was moving out. That tide has shifted. People want to live where they can walk to work, and your story is an example.
Exactly.
So the good news is the market is in our favor, and what we need to now do is continue that conversation more quickly through public-private partnerships and circulators, etc.
And I think it's really there for when the kids come back from college or they graduate from UAB and they're back in our community. They don't want to go to the suburbs. I mean, how boring can it be? They want to come into a vibrant city. And I think there's kind of those kind of in groups, that young group and the older young group that are coming back, and so it's a fun time. Let me ask you something before I go to the next one, and I will go, I promise. Could we, in Birmingham, have a car-free day? How many say, are you crazy? No. Is it a possibility? Is it a real possibility? Would you be willing to get out of leave your car and walk for a day? I can't hear you. No. I hear some no's. Do I hear any yeses? Yes. All right. So we could do it. That would be crazy. I don't think Bogota, you thought you could do it, could you? So you think if we voted, we had a vote tomorrow in the city of Birmingham, we're going to give up our cars. Okay, let's make it easy. Sunday afternoon. Okay, all right, go to church, come home, whatever. Sunday afternoon. Could we give it up for Sunday afternoon from 1 till 6? Yeah. So maybe we take a small chunk and then see how it goes, and then we go to the next one. I don't know. Or maybe what we do is we do it in the city center. I don't know. I think there are things you think about, but I think it's fabulous to see how Bogota has done some of these sort of things. Okay, next.
1 second. I completely agree. I mean, if we think 20 or 30 years ahead, downtowns will not be a problem anymore, because time is working in favor of downtowns. What will be a problem will be all the suburbs, what we're going to do with all these spaces that are deserted by them. But what I want to emphasize is, well, a point that is a characteristic of any good city is a vibrant public space, and I think information is also part of the public realm. And Anthony Townsend recently talked about, again, about the famous conflict between Jane Jacobs and Robert Moses, that it was essentially also a discourse or a conflict about data. Robert Moses had all these reports that proved the rationale for his interventions, and Jane Jacobs orchestrated all this like grassroots data collection to prove a different point. And I think we should not only focus on surveys like the ones that we saw. That we should use this opportunity to get to ask people what are the issues to make sense of their environment, of the city, not just by those boring surveys, but really use this opportunity to create a discourse about the future of the city.
We have a questionnaire.
Go ahead, please.
My question is for the communities around the world. Kathy is one of the few developers that is forward-thinking and that is doing things in the city to bring urban living back to the urban core. And I feel like the developers are still developing for a population that no longer exists. And for the people that are graduating from college, the young professionals that are looking to move to different cities that have opportunities to go wherever they want because of the new industries that are available to us, we need options of places to live. Not everybody wants to live in a condo that's downtown. So what do you recommend to inspire more developers to do what Kathy has, been the frontiersman and the only one doing for so long, to call people? We have to have places to live if we want options and variety. We have to have different pay levels of places to live. It's not just an apartment or a loft. So how do we grow those options so that we can start attracting people back downtown?
Well, recently I went back to college and I got to live in an apartment that was 600 square feet, but everything around me became my house. The square, the libraries, it was a community that was very well organized for an integrated living, and I was perfectly happy as a lark in 600 square feet. So again, I think that we need housing housing choices. We need clear guiding principles to integrate mixed income choices for everybody. People want to live in diverse cities. I think we need, and we're going to see a much larger shift to rental housing. We clearly are. It's the only thing that as a developer we can fund nowadays. But I think that our sort of love affair with home ownership is coming to a shift, major shift. And so the opportunities for a city like Birmingham, again, I think we could strengthen our core, which is where we all work mostly. We could create wonderful little nodes, downtowns, walkable, you know, what is the walkable center of Cleveland? What is the walkable center of our surrounding villages and other communities? So, and then we need to connect it with public transportation. So those would be some of the things I would do.
Someone else?
Oh, thank you. Moving into the side of trying to make things happen, I wouldn't rely alone on the administration, because the administration usually is very busy doing things every time, every day, every second. They are always busy on the day-to-day activities, actions, and the like. Even though you may have a mayor that might want to do things in the long run and leave, you know, the seeds there for many things to happen in the long run. So I believe that there is a need, first of all, to find a leader to do something, and something we're going to write to that point. The leader might be the university, and the university has a lot of power, actions, programs, and the like, and people there ready to work for a purpose. And the university might have the possibility of doing consultation with the population as well, more than the public administration. So what I would suggest is to try to get the empowerment of the administration to the university in order to set a strategy to define the city that is the city that the people who live here really want to have in the long run. And for that to happen, what you need is to define actions. And one of the actions will be, well, we need a contest. That has been said already. A contest to make a sort of scenarios of the possibilities of the city, downtown city, in 10, 5, 10, 20 years. Then scenarios for the financial options of those possible actions to be taken, or the strategies to be put in place. Then you need a contest and bring people to bring ideas from the outside. And then you need to do consultation. And that's for the side of what do we want to do with the city? And that's a question that you need to answer. And for the other things to happen, then you need a list of actions. Then you need to work on transportation. Well, if we are going to have a new city in the future, then how transportation is going to fit in that process? And how do we arrive there? So you need to ask a lot of questions to arrive to some points. And that's the university, the one who can carry out that kind of action. Then you build a portfolio of ideas. Portfolio of actions, short-term, medium-term, long-term, and then you put people to work on those actions, and then you find partners to put them into practice. Sometimes you have as partner the city, you know, the administration. Sometimes you don't need the city for actions to be put in place, or you need only decisions from the city. You don't need the money, you don't need decisions, but you need a portfolio. So you need to work on a strategy, and probably the university is the one to, the best prepared group of people to organize those actions. And a list of actions with a portfolio of actions, with a measurement of how this portfolio can be put in practice, and then how much that would cost, or what kind of partners will be necessary to put them into practice. Then you have the list of what we have been talking about, but you need to put that in black and white, within a time and within responsibilities. And then you find a way, you know, to move ahead. Otherwise, if you just rely on the administration, probably you're going to spend a lot of time waiting for something to happen, because they are busy always.
I will say that, thank you, I will say that at UAB we've in our master plan, I don't know if some of you may have seen it, we have published it widely, and it is on our website, that we do have a plan to add more housing, more mixed housing. We would like partnerships probably, but we're looking at housing, and UAB is moving north and moving into an area that we've always called Midtown, which is kind of a mixed hodgepodge. Was that be? That's probably not an appropriate term, but it's a mixed type of development. So we are moving north, and we will be bringing more people to the mid part of our city. Right now, we have 2,200 students that live on campus. So UAB is bringing people back to the city, and a lot of those are going to graduate and want to live in Birmingham. And then all these things that are happening, then we do need the bikes and the pedestrians and all these exciting things to keep them here. So I did want to say that we're looking, we're planning that. It does take time, it takes money, but it is the plan. Yes, let's take a question.
Yes, I would like to know what sustainable communities mean, because the only thing I heard y'all say was talking about the inner city, the urban area. No, the mayor, he's the only one talked about the communities outside of the poor neighborhoods. Let me just put it that way. He said something about the poor neighborhoods. Everything that's being done is being done downtown. The neighborhoods that's directly hooked to downtown, which is Norwood and Woodlawn. Hittersville is just like you put on brakes on a car, just stop. Nothing is being done. It's not a bike trail over there in West End, the western side of town, period. What would it take to get projects? People just, like the young lady had said, don't want to just live in lofts and in apartments. Why we can't bring some of the projects into the poor neighborhoods? We want bike trails, we want decent sidewalks, we can walk and exercise. We want parks with walking tracks and playground equipment and basketball goals and things like that. We have none of that. If you look at the plans now, all the parks that's being done now is not being done in the inner city, period. It's just like you're in a car and you stop. It just stops right there, right at the edge of the thing. Just like any bus route they got, any of these nice buses that they got that take you around, it stops dead in the inner city before you even get into the community. So,
I'm sorry, yeah. I'm going to ask you to tackle that, because if I remember, one of your first slides was, we need to make sustainable cities, and we make the kinds of cities for everybody. The poor, disabled, etc. Wasn't that one of your slides? So I'm going to ask you, because I think you began to address that, because I think it's right. I mean, so what would you say?
Look, Dietmar and Kathy said the city is going to go back to downtown. There is the tendency, the world tendency, international tendency. I was here in the United States in high school and college, and I remember I worked as a construction laborer, even like for about a year after I graduated from college and things, and all my workmates were African Americans, and I used to go to the neighborhoods where they used to live downtown in Washington, D.C., and I would have never in my life would have believed that those neighborhoods were going to become now $10 million homes. So maybe it's possible, but if what Kathy and Dietmar say is true, it would be a historical opportunity that would have been lost, because this process is going, if it's going to happen, then you will have gentrification. These people will be kicked out, and then but now in government and in the universities, everybody is so afraid to be politically incorrect and say that we have to wipe out completely a whole area, which would be the best way to help the residents there, because then we would have a whole new area, new apartments with all these parks and great schools and great libraries and great sports facilities, mixed income neighborhoods. They would stay there, plus you would bring high-income people as well. The best way for this to happen is with government interventions. Of course, with private sector, but in a team. I think if this is going to happen anyway, in 20 years or 30 years, let's suppose that this process, the government doesn't do anything, and this happens all by itself. Slowly, slowly, this becomes gentrified, nice houses, because it's very obvious. This land is so obvious, you know, I mean, for any developer, you know, 10 minutes away from downtown, this amazing land, so cheap now. It's very obvious that this is going to, and 20 years from now, you will say, oh, what an opportunity we missed. It's a historical opportunity when this land was so cheap, it was so easy to have done something really amazing, new urbanism, completely different. Not talking about the new urbanism, as it's called here, but like giant, just pedestrian and bicycle streets only and things like this. So I believe these two things can be done together to do the whole redevelopment so that you can really change the life of those people there, and at the same time change the city forever. It's an amazing opportunity now. Now, if we agree, as we tend to think, that there is the potential, the tendency that people will want, but what I'm saying is we don't want to bring people downtown. Linda is a hero who comes to the traditional downtown. Because it's the traditional, but I'm talking of a downtown which can be much better than the traditional downtown one that we know, because it could be a thing with very high density, very high buildings, but amazing networks of pedestrian only. So I will also like to propose for the next 3 years a couple of very simple things, since short term. The university could have a real great network of protected bicycle ways, bicycle parking, and bicycle sharing, for example. Second, we could do a very interesting study, just as an academic study, just a paper, taking the middle and high income people who work downtown but who live out in the suburbs, and mostly those who do not have children between 5 and 18. What would it take for them to want to come downtown? It would be interesting just as an academic exercise, even if we're not going to do anything. What exactly would it take? What kind of apartment would it take for them to come? What kind of facilities? It would be very interesting to know. Third, I think it would be possible to do, for example, I think the streets here in Birmingham are totally oversized. At least half of the space is wasted. So if we were able to do...
So you like that idea?
Maybe one experiment. Just one experiment. In one very long street, one.
How about University Avenue?
Yeah.
I don't know this reason, but if you were to take 1 or 2 lanes away from cars and do a beautiful pedestrian and bicycle street with trees and everything, I think traffic would not be affected practically at all, and you will have an amazing experiment with a 5-mile beautiful pedestrian, I mean very well designed by architects and all of this, and this is something that doesn't cost very much. And if, let's say, if 20 years from now, people find that this was, the cars came back and we need this space or whatever, which I don't think they should ever come back, then we can take it away. I mean, it's nothing so difficult to redo, but it will be an interesting experience to see the kind of character, not just the traditional. So, another thing, in the most congested highways, why not try a busway? Exclusive lane for buses. Maybe it could be done even in the following way, so that it's not so painful and controversial and all of this. We could use the counter flux traffic for the bus. I mean, on the highway on the way out, which in the morning doesn't have traffic, we could take one lane there to put the buses coming into downtown, and it will not be traumatic because this the highway on the way out is basically very empty in the morning. So some experiment, but to see how do we get some of the people who are coming by car. But why do people use public transport in the planet? Why? I insist, never is because they love public transport. Never is because they love the environment, except for a few eccentrics. It's because they have to, because it's much faster than coming by car. So we have to do this in the highway where we have the most traffic jams. That's where this thing has a chance of working.
Thank you. We have a question.
Yes, question and sort of a comment too. First, I guess I'll get to the comment. HB 274, their anti-recycling bill was mentioned a little while ago. I believe they have redacted that. Now, getting to what, yeah, I guess there could be some applause after that, really. Unless she had some, unless whoever the speaker was who said that had some information. I think it was redacted yesterday. Let's see, I don't know who the lady was who was up here speaking about how some of the more rural neighborhoods are being left out. I agree with the gentleman up there in the green tie. I believe that the city is the future of Birmingham, that people will eventually move to the inner city. But in the meantime, we shouldn't be abandoning these people in the suburbs who want to be green just because they choose to live in the suburbs. And one example of that is recycling. I live in a neighborhood called Bellwood that's on the corner of Fairfield, close to Inslee, right out of the official lines of the city of Birmingham, and they have no curbside recycling. I have to take my recycling to UAB just to get it done. Why do they not have curbside recycling? And another thing, some of the recycling initiatives, even around UAB, I've noticed a bit of lapses recently. I was just informed last night at a Green Initiative meeting that Blunt Hall has issues with recycling on its floors. And I realize that they still do recycling on the main floor, on the ground floor, but you're kind of missing a lot of people who want to recycle if you're not taking the bins from every floor like they used to be. So I'm seeing a little bit of backslide in some of these green initiatives, and we're definitely going to have to hamper down on that a little bit. Thank you.
I made a note of that.
Next question.
Mine is more of a comment. I am the transportation engineer, tree hugger that the mayor mentioned earlier this morning. I like to think that I hope I'm not an endangered species, but we transportation engineer are responsible for most of the hardscape we got. That's unfortunate, and I am dead set against it. So I went there and I said, what is the sustainable infrastructure? I found out what the green streets are and all that stuff. If you get a chance to go there, you'll understand. In terms of mass transit, they got it figured out. Travel time, that's the key. Travel time. Getting from point A to point B. The only way you can get to there in Birmingham is in your car. Okay? Last but not least, I actually am from Decatur, not from Birmingham, so you can probably scratch all my comments. But we're in the process of doing a streetscape project. It's looking good. And the other thing we're looking at is getting lofts. Now, we've got a fairly pristine old downtown street that hasn't been cobbled up, fortunately. So we're starting with good bones, hopefully, and hopefully to do the right thing. And we're wanting to get lofts down there. And what I'll tell you about lofts is real simple. Keep them as small as possible because you get more foot traffic that way. Thank you.
Next, you have a question, I have.
Yes, I actually have a question.
Thank you.
That's not going to go up. Anyway. It won't go up. I'll just hold it up. That's okay. There we go. I'm strong. I'm young. Kathy and Frank are going to have some experience with this. Some of the other panelists may have some insight. Here in Alabama, we have a particular situation where we actually have full-on antagonistic political attitude towards the Birmingham region, where the rest of the state is essentially against us. They are actively trying to do whatever they can to screw us. I mean, let's just call it like it is. There was a senator the other day that's proposing to ban all occupational taxes right as Jefferson County is trying to deal with its situation. How do we deal with a political system in this state that has stacked the deck against us?
You know, actually, I had an interesting conversation recently about our region, and we produce a big chunk of the economic income for the state of Alabama, but we are organized in this most disjointed way, as you all know. We have city government, county government, lots and lots of municipalities, and a delegation that does not operate as one voice. And this very high up official said to me, you know, when your delegation comes to Montgomery, the rural counties are very good at dividing your voice. And as a result, the money goes from Birmingham to Montgomery, but it does not come back to Birmingham. And it is simply because we cannot create one voice. He also said, if your delegation came and spoke with one voice, you could shut Montgomery down tomorrow, which for me was an amazing recognition of the importance of all of our delegation working together on singular projects. So, good point. It's a problem. It's an organizational issue.
I would also endorse that and suggest that we have the problem right in our own metro area. We have cities competing with one another so they can get more sales taxes. We have them, trying to keep Birmingham inner city schools weak, which essentially leads to, I think, growth of suburban communities all over the mountain communities, Trustville. And I think we have those kinds of competitions that more regionalization can help with. And I think those are issues as well. But that is part of our failure to have cohesion as a community.
Well, it's a question, it's a comment. I want to say that, of course, I'm with Alabama Power Company. But I'm not alone. But what I wanted to say, this is a great conference here, okay? And this is a start, okay? All of us in this room, we're almost like preaching to the choir, because everybody in this room is either interested in sustainability and green building design, or we wouldn't be here. So it's everybody outside this conference that's who we need to reach. And this is a start. You know, I'm involved in a lot of organizations, a lot of green building initiatives. Kathy's involved, Bruce Harrington's involved, Keith John's involved, and some others that we can all work together to make these things happen that the mayor mentioned. I mean, it's just, you know, UAB's a leader, APCO, AIA, USGBC, the City of Birmingham, Birmingham Urban Planning, Jefferson County Planning, all of our surrounding communities, Operation New Birmingham, Birmingham Alliance, what we're doing in our recycling centers back here. We are doing a lot of stuff. I don't really think people are against us. I mean, we are against ourselves. We've got to start somewhere and do some things. And I think this group and everybody in this room can make it happen. And if we'll just start and listen to what we've heard and let UAB lead it, we can all make this thing happen together. We can't do it alone. That's all I want to say.
Yeah. The green revolution that's sweeping the world will have to have tools. Materials to build green buildings, instruments to help create
Can you speak into the mic, please?
Sustainable electricity. All of these tools have to be manufactured somewhere. And it has to be a place that is a sustainable place so that they don't travel halfway around the world to be used. Birmingham sits geographically in the heart of the Southeast. One of our biggest problems in Birmingham is unemployment. The green industry creates jobs. You can't move forward in this conversation because the people in Titusville, North Birmingham, Cottageville, Woodlawn, Ensley, Pratt City are not going to go peacefully. We would like to have a part of the prosperity. And so the plan has to include bringing jobs into the inner city. It's a part of sustainability. Sustainability is a movement to take the best care we can of the least disease of our species.
I think this conversation about poorer neighborhoods and the need to connect, I mean, this is really about how do we connect things. And if you think about the way this city was started from a planning standpoint, we had one of the finest streetcar systems in the country connecting Eastlake, Woodlawn, Ensley, Fairfield, Bessemer. And those streetcars were removed and we've replaced it with cars. That was a national movement that occurred many years ago. But again, how do we rebuild and create walkable downtowns, not just in the center, but in Inslee and at Five Points West and in Eastlake and Woodlawn, that's the real opportunity for us is we build on our collection of neighborhoods, which are extraordinary. And again, schools play heavily into how we rebuild that. But it's not about one downtown, it's about many downtowns, walkable where people live and work.
Well, Kathy, you touched on my question a little bit. This has been an incredibly interesting day, and I understand the focus on built environment, but only one speaker has covertly even referenced the importance of schools, and that was Brian Hilton. I'd like to ask our guest from Bogota, what role did improving public education play in making your city sustainable? There's some of us that believe it will never be sustainable unless we level the playing field for all our children.
Well, now that you mentioned Bogota, first I'd like to say that Bogota is no example of a wonderful city. We have a couple of experiments which are interesting, but Bogota is a city with horrible poverty, crime problems, all kinds of things. We have some interesting experiments, innovative. Now, in the case of Bogota, for example, they're clear, we have a very big municipality, about 7 million inhabitants, one municipality. And we are in charge of everything. The municipality is in charge of education, transportation, health, everything. So, clearly, there is not only a conflict for space in the streets between people and cars, but there is a conflict for money. If you make a lot of investments in roads, so you will not have money for the schools and for the low-income housing and for the parks and things like this. Actually, when I arrived in City Hall, as I mentioned, I had this proposal by the Japanese studies to invest in billions of dollars in highways, elevated highways and all this. Instead of that, we restricted car use, we did not do these elevated highways, and we invested heavily, mostly in education. For example, we have talked many times about the bus system here in Transmilenio. We invested 7 times more in education than in the bus system. We did some very interesting, creative new things. We built some very nice, I'm sure that Birmingham, a small American city, has a fantastic library network. We didn't. So we created 12 small libraries and 3 big libraries, and I got later with a wealthy Colombian to donate a fourth one. And I wanted these libraries to be gigantic, beautiful, because I wanted them to be symbols, like a cathedral. Not just functional, but to be symbols that imagine a very poor boy that maybe even has a house with a dirt floor to come into this amazing, beautiful place. So it's a message that education is important. We are trying to almost change the hero. It's not just education in the formal sense. We want that the hero in the neighborhood is not the one that comes in a fancy motorcycle with jewels and is doing drug deals, but the one who is in an old bicycle and does sports and goes to the library. So when this young boy is the hero, then we are really telling the corrupt, the drug traffickers that we despise their values. When we are having a library, so we are showing that education and knowledge is important. It's like, a city, the physical city reflects the values of the society, but also it constructs them. This is why traditionally in Europe, for example, or in Latin America, and also here in the United States, you see the great cathedrals and the churches from many miles away, because really these churches, these cathedrals reflected the values of society, but on the other hand also promoted religiosity. So we also built amazing schools, like the best, in underdeveloped countries, only 30% of the 30–40% of higher income people send their children to private school, unfortunately. But we built schools in the poorest neighborhood which were better than those in the poorest, in the richest private schools in the country. And we made some very interesting thing. We made some agreement through which the best private schools from the elite, from the richest of the rich, plus the best private university in Colombia, managed these public schools in the poorest neighborhoods with an amazing result, with an amazing success in terms of, but of course this has made huge political cost because the teachers' unions, they are normally, as in many countries, more interested in their benefits much more than in the children's education. So they invented all kinds of calumny and lies because before they used to say, oh, these children were very poor. They cannot learn because they don't have books at home and they don't have magazines and this. And so we went and we proved that these children were doing the same and just as well practically as the most elite schools in the city. An amazing success. But I agree fully with you, but all I'm trying to emphasize is, look, in the developing world, it's very difficult because I have worked in many cities in Colombia and I have always gone and they always tell me, oh, the mayor is very bad or the government is very bad because the traffic is bad or because there are potholes in the roads or something. But the upper income people, they don't care about public transport because they use their cars. They don't care about public health because they never use public hospitals, they go to private hospitals. They don't care about public education because their children go to private schools. So the only thing they care about that government does is traffic and traffic jams. So I have never heard that the people will tell me, oh, the mayor is very bad or the government is very bad because the children don't have good schools or because there is not a good math teacher. The only thing they say is bad because there are traffic jams. So, but all I'm trying to emphasize is when you have scarce resources, scarce funds, there is a competition for funds between cars and education. This is not just a gaming war to come. It's a very clear competition for funds because what really absorbs most of the budget in developing country cities is road building and maintenance. So if you really want to make much more investment in children nurseries, in schools, in libraries, almost you have to have a policy of restricting car use in order to be able to do this.
Thank you.
Just a quick comment on the subject of education. And based on the subject of libraries, I just want to recall that the foundation, the Clinton Foundation, started with something really interesting. President Clinton really wanted to have the foundation to build the library because he saw what Mayor Peñalosa did in Bogota, and he actually built a library in Arkansas. So that was something interesting just for the sake of libraries are key issue, are the center of the knowledge for many people. Even though you have internet, you can do like internet whatever you want, but people still go to libraries because it's something very special, and you can do that with a lot of support of private institutions. That, I mean, many companies, all those companies, big companies, have a foundation to make to make social investment, like Bill and Melinda Gates or the Hill Foundation and the like. And if you have a project for areas, for instance, poor areas, or where you really want to have some quick investment based on private support, you can try to structure a project. But if you don't have a project, you have nothing. You need to write something, one page, something. You need a project. You need an idea. You need to quantify the idea, and then you can, look for resources. Even though normally those are responsibilities from the public sector to make that kind of investments. And on the other hand, the person that was speaking a few minutes ago, she was saying asking about sustainable communities. Well, sustainability has many sides, and at the same time, what you really want to do is to help people generate income. And income can be generated using environmental subjects. For instance, you can try through the university to structure small projects to have energy production at home, selling the surplus of energy during the day and using energy from the system during the evening or the night. And the balance is normally positive, but you need to help the people. You need to help structuring the project, and then you need to help the people, help the households to find a way to finance that project. And then it's functioning in the USA in many places. And that's a way, you know, to get some income out of something that is good for the environment. The same thing is valid for the university and even for this building. I just want to say something. In some less developed countries like Colombia, these kind of bulbs that you see here are forbidden. We got rid of that kind of bulbs because we moved into more efficient bulbs. Also, probably the light is not the best, but we moved by law towards more efficient source of energy of lights. So if you at the university try to structure a project for building retrofitting and you use that building retrofitting project to show how it works in a place like a university or this building, then it's a case for people to learn how to do things at home, at the university, at buildings, at the city hall, in many places, and then you create jobs and you do a lot of environmental positive projects for the city, bit by bit.
Thank you. We want to move along so that these folks can get their questions in. I think that will be enough, so no more should line up. If you'd ask a quick question, we'd appreciate it.
So my question is kind of geared towards the people who gave presentations. But you know, I'm from Atlanta, and I look at a lot of projects we've done, a lot of projects that are going on. They end up being compromised. You know, in the political environment, people don't want to go forward. The public's not behind it, and you go from this great project, and it ends up being a compromise and bits and pieces of it in a way that even further perpetuates, you know, this was a bad idea. So my question to y'all is, you know, these are really revolutionary things that are happening. And how were y'all able, or in your cases, how were these cities able to get people behind them? Was it a grassroots effort? Was it a government effort to really get these revolutionary things that, you know, people would be very opposed to off the start, off the ground? You know, how did y'all go about that? Or what are some best practices that y'all have seen?
Okay, who has the best answer? We're going to have one so I can get all these people.
I'd like to just say very quickly, the Greenway project in Atlanta is the most exciting project, I think, in the United States in terms of Greenway, your Beltline. And if you look at that process, it's happening in Atlanta. So, you know, we're doing some things good here. That's a referendum. I hope everybody votes for it and it passes.
Thank you. Next question.
Sorry, nobody answered your question.
First, I just want to say, as a young adult and just kind of getting into politics in the last few years, it was inspirational to see Mayor Peñalosa demonstrate how much of an impact a mayor could have in all these different issues. So I really appreciated that and seeing how much of a motivational leader you are. Second, I wanted to reiterate the importance of higher education. We talked about public school systems and how we need to have strong public access to schools. I also think that to build on top of that, we need to emphasize the importance of higher education and making it publicly available. In the U.S., anyone can go to college if you have money. You have to take out loans if your state, for example, doesn't provide a scholarship opportunity like the state of Florida, which is my home state, did for me. But I just wanted to say, you know, universities, they emphasize the culture of ideas and progress, and that's something that I really cherish from my 6 years of higher education. And I just wanted to say that my school of public health here at the University of Alabama is actually setting up something called the Edge of Chaos, which is going to encourage, yeah, I guess you're aware of this, it's building an open space to encourage interdisciplinary work to support creative ideas and such. So this is one of the many things that Birmingham is doing to advance the role of higher education in the community at large. But
thank you for your comments. Can we take the next? Do you have a question?
I did have a question, yes. Thanks for asking.
Okay, from now on, 2 comments and then a question.
Good. So my question is, I've lived in Birmingham for 3 years now, and I've been, I guess, kind of sidelined by the urban, I guess, layout. So we have an extremely commercial area downtown, and I was wondering how a city goes about like redistricting or rezoning this into something that can be like residential or mixed use or something like this. Because it seems like that would be a major barrier to populating the downtown area. And to answer the survey about what people from UAB want, I'm working at UAB now, and I was thinking a townhome, maybe two-story, green roof on top, yard for the bottom. Something like that.
Okay, that's it. All right. We do have mixed use. City of Birmingham, there are lots all in downtown. There, you can live all over South Side. I mean, if somebody wants to take up one of those old buildings and put lofts in it, can they do it? Absolutely, you can do it. So yeah, I mean, we can have mixed use all around. Okay, and UAB is moving that way, and we want to have mixed use all in the Midtown area. So we're absolutely for that, and it can be done. Okay. Next question, please, sir. Question.
Yes. My question is related to the one earlier about infrastructure investment in low-income communities. And I know that in Mayor Peñalosa's slides, he included an example of a low-income community that first you had the investment in bikeways and pedestrian trails, and then the development or redevelopment came after that. I'm wondering what your thoughts are about that kind of investment in the Birmingham area maybe, and then also connecting it to the concept of distributed or decentralized monitoring and action that Mr. Hoffenhuber mentioned earlier.
The second part I didn't understand, but the first part, well, I just say clearly, I mean, again, I will emphasize our reality is very different than Birmingham's, but we still have a lot of poverty, huge poverty, and clearly we made a great emphasis in the lowest income neighborhoods, bringing all kinds of extremely high quality facilities, nurseries, parks, schools, some housing programs. But what is less obvious is also that, for example, these sidewalks in a society where only 75% of homes don't have a car. This is also a social investment to dignify the life of the lower income people. I mean, you almost can say that the difference between income is really felt in quality of life between high income and low income is felt really during leisure time. During work time, the high income executive or the lowest paid person at the company may be similarly satisfied. It's when they leave work and the upper income person goes to and there the difference is huge, to a big house, to gardens, to clubs, to restaurants, to vacations. And the low income person has no alternative for the leisure time different than television. So public pedestrian space is very important for low income to create democracy. Also, when we build a bicycle way, I would say a bicycle way is 50% important because it protects the cyclist. It's another 50% important because it's showing that the citizen with a $30 bicycle is equally important to one on a $30,000 car. The busway, again, is a very powerful symbol because it really shows to people who were very low income people who were always almost unconsciously felt inferior to those who had cars who were the important ones. When they saw the fancy $100,000 cars in the traffic jam and the public transport was zooming by much faster, that's democracy at work. It's a very powerful symbol. I mean, democracy is not just the fact that people go vote. Democracy has to mean that all citizens are equal before the law, and that also implies that public good prevails over private interest. So also this very high velocity, low cost public transport allows many people to find jobs much farther, which otherwise they would not, because in a giant city like that, it could have taken them 3 hours before to go, where now it takes 40 minutes to go, so they can find more jobs. So all of these things, I say, beyond the obvious investment in the low-income people, in schools and things, many of these other things, I think, also have very powerful social implications.
Thank you.
Three quick things I think we have an opportunity to do here are to strike bike lanes, which UAB is now doing and we're starting to do in our city, and get a ride share, a bike share program. Get a zip car. Zip cars love to come into urban university areas, because it's a car system that can move people around, and get a city center circulator that works, that connects to the neighborhoods. Those are kind of low-hanging fruit that are right in front of us today.
Next question.
Hello, I very much appreciate Mr. Penalosa's comments just now about the importance of these sustainable city planning initiatives to really build a democratic society. And I think that's what a lot of people here wanted to hear very clearly from, and that's what some of these questions are about. But I also wanted to respond to your comment earlier about the term urban renewal and how that's a dirty word. And I think there is a very real reason why that's a dirty word, and I think we should be honest about that. These programs were often used to target minority communities and poor communities, and that's a very sad but real part of the legacy of our city. And I think it's a disservice to not acknowledge that, honestly. That's something that we're all still dealing with today, and that Birmingham needs to face up to it.
Yes, of course I agree that this was the case. And this is why I mentioned that the fact that there were many mistakes or despotic wrong decisions does not mean that these kind of projects are necessarily wrong. On the contrary, I think if government does not intervene, let's assume that that Kathy and Dietmar are right, and she should know because she's in the business, that there is a tendency towards people coming back to the central areas. And government doesn't do anything. Government doesn't do anything. What's going to happen? Some big developers are going to come and buy these low-income neighborhoods of Titusville and all of these other things, and the low-income people are going to be kicked out. So if government does not intervene and doesn't do anything, if government intervenes, what can happen? First, you can do an amazing thing. You really wipe out a very huge area, and you can redo a perfect, beautiful place with all these new ingredients of design. It doesn't mean that because they made a mistake in design in 1950, it means that you're going to do it now. Many wonderful redevelopments have been done in all European cities, and this doesn't mean that. So, and you will be able to accommodate mixed income people. The low-income people who are there now will have much better housing. They will have great parks, great schools, libraries, all of these things. And otherwise, they may end up being kicked out to the farther out suburbs, which is what has happened in many cases. So, always when government intervenes, always when you make decisions, it's politically costly because those who benefit, I mean the city who will benefit from this, very few people will come and support you for doing this. Second, the people who will have to do this is some developers with money. So by definition, almost they are bad guys, you know. So if there are a few people who protest, they will have a lot of visibility. So the easiest thing is not to do anything. But I think on the contrary, if it's well done, maybe the best thing to happen for the low-income people there. This is what I believe. Because if the government does not intervene, they may simply slowly get kicked out very far away and nobody will even notice.
Thank you. Last question.
It's really a very short comment, but it's going to make us all feel very positive, as we do already. But Dr. Lucas asked at the beginning, what can we do in the next 2 or 3 years to make a difference? We have an opportunity in the next 2 or 3 months to make a huge difference, and that's to change the parking ordinances in the city. We now have a minimum parking requirement, unlike Denver, which has a maximum parking requirement. I've been to UAB almost 20 years and watched this campus grow, fighting restrictions that said, you're going to build a building, you need parking within 300 feet of that building. We've now expanded that to 1,200. We've made progress. But if we had not had those restrictions in the last 20 years, we'd have half as many cars that be parked around the fringes of the campus. We'd have 100 times more bicycles.
I want to thank this panel. I think the one thing that has become evident is that we have a tremendous palette on which to paint from. It's been well pointed out that there is a tremendous amount of space in the urban area that is available and open, that is relatively inexpensive, that is not being used for housing, it's not being used for a lot of things that it could be used for. So we have a great opportunity in front of us. I think it's time to go to work. Thank you all very much. And we will,
I have lots of reasons for it, but over the last 5 or 6 years I did a lot of research on the sustainability location. Certainly Copenhagen pops to these near the top of the list, but what I discovered is, incidentally, you may not realize that, but most of those European nations actually went to Portland, Oregon to find out how to do it. So if you go to Portland, Oregon, if you haven't been there, all these problems that you talked about today that you've got, they've solved. Okay? They've got lofts. They built a low-income housing unit that got filled with middle-income people. They're doing something right, okay?